Alright, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Parasyte the Maxim, Episode 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have our main character, Shinichi, and he's been...
infected.
Yes, parasited.
Yeah. And
Me
now...
too, apparently. So he nearly expectorated the... or no, he did successfully expectorate the parasite out, but then it went into his arm.
Right, but it's just his right arm. His right arm has been changed.
Yes.
Forever. His right arm has gained new powers.
Yes.
Specifically his right hand more than anything else. But
I think it's the arm up to at least the elbow, you know?
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that this thing is learning. This thing is learning. It's absorbing information. It's strong. It's something that has the ability to exercise its own will over the flesh.
It is an entirely separate entity.
Yes, and it is a separate entity. That is a good thing to bring up. It ate his arm and replaced it, basically.
Yeah, his arm's gone.
So he doesn't have an arm. But in some ways, this is something interesting in that it's offering some kind of partnership, some kind of symbiotic relationship where...
mutually beneficial.
Shinichi will be able to send nerve signals essentially through the faux arm to basically act as if it's his own when the parasite is asleep.
Largely maintaining his semblance of a normal life, even though that's probably not going to last long.
Yeah, his parents have already begun to suspect that he was taking drugs.
Yes. And the other parasites can detect his presence, and they seem to be hostile when they find out that the brain was not consumed, therefore the human part of him is still there.
And the parasite was a failure, specifically. It remarked multiple times, like, I failed, I failed, I didn't get the brain. And so there was some goal in mind with getting the brains. We have to figure out what that's all about and what the other parasites are here for. So, yeah, y'all, it's crazy. So without further ado, let's get into this. Okay. I love everything about the OP except the very last frame. Oh, no, you did not just chotomate. You did not just chotomate in this hood up here.
They're about to get choco-mate'd.
She's gonna have her parasite kill you all. Oh. Oh, wow. Whoa! Jeez! Well, he's got a parasite in him.
He's just full-blown parasite.
Oh my gosh.
See, because he was planning on eating her, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow! Wow!
That was such a weird transition sound.
Wow. Sound effects are such a huge part of this show so far.
Yeah. Right hand Chan it is.
Yeah.
Migi. Cool.
Huh. Ah! Nice.
And then just right hand. Classic jealous boys.
That's not even the right way to play basketball, but it just worked.
Yeah.
Damn you, Izumi. We're gonna beat you up. Oh wait, no. Oh, it's the girls.
No, she'll totally beat him up.
Aw. The other girl is being like a wingman for him. Like, what the heck?
Hey.
Oh, smooth! So smooth!
It won't, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh. Ooh.
Well, the fact that she's asking that question, does she know something?
人間の生殖行動に興味がある。シンジはあの女と交尾したかったんだろ。待てよ。俺がムラノのこと好きなの知ってる。
Oh, he likes Murano as well. Fight me. Oh.
Okay.
Oh crap.
Okay, you're an asshole.
Yeah. Careful, careful, careful. He might have seen that though. Ah!
But yeah, it's a good question.
Ah!
Oh my god! Wow!
He actually did it!
Not even being subtle.
No!
With the whole right hand thing.
Oh my gosh! Episode 2!
Okay.
It's so funny. Like, it's so perfect. Oh.
Oh, if it's all over the world, do you really think it's one person? Yeah.
Yep, yep. Oh, here we go.
Would it be unpleasant to you if your kind was eaten?
No,
I
see?
suppose that's fair. Well, right, but you basically were just born.
Kind of.
もし君が私の身に害を及ぼすような行動に出るなら、私は全力でそれを阻止するぞ。君の命は守る。しかし、口を聞けなくすることができるんだぞ。
Yeah.
すごい恐怖心だ。少し休んだ方がいいな。
Yeah. Yeah.
Although, yeah.
悪魔というのを調べたが、一番それに近い生物は人間だと。
Oh.
人間はあらゆる種類の生物を殺し食っているが、私の仲間たちが食うのはほんの 1,2 種類だ。
Well, that just means you discriminate what kind of things you eat. Doesn't say anything about quantity.
That's true.
新一。近づいてくるぞ。離れた方がいい。
Yeah. Yep.
That
Let's
might be
go.
a good idea.
また殺し合いになるぞ。
人食い同好会のお誘いかな。
Okay.
The dark humor in this show is interesting.
会ってやるのさ。人殺しの顔を見てやる。
バカなことを言うな。
Don't be a baka.
Yeah.
じゃあミギが守ってくれよ。
人間の心はよくわからない。今の君は恐怖心が麻痺しているようだが。
Whoa.
人間が何人も殺されているんだ。放っておけば村野だって。
あと5メートル。
Yep, here it is.
人間の脳がまるまる生き残っている。こいつは確かに危険な存在だな。
Or what if it was something else? And we could actually talk this out?
動くな。この人間を攻撃するのならお前を殺す。
言いたいことはわかる。だが右手さん、君はこっちに引っ越してくりゃいいんだよ。
引っ越す。
Wait, really?
移動は不可能なはず。
Oh, joining like a fusing of sorts?
だが腕から腕へなら簡単。
Okay. Gotcha, because it's already taken... Migi's already taken the form of a right arm.
Oh, dang.
指定席を作ってやったぞ。これで信じたか。
Oh. Oh.
さあ、移ってきて俺の右腕になれ。我々が管理するこの肉体なら140年は生きられるだ。
Whoa.
Okay. Yep.
Whoa.
Nice.
Well, He's dead. He's super dead.
Now what's Migi's reasoning for this going to be? It's contrary to what they said earlier.
Yeah. Whoa. Self-preservation. Oh, so these are... He got the cheaper pancakes.
Yeah. Although I could also see that just being a matter of taste, you know?
Sure. They're like, oh, look at those cuties in love over there. Wait, what? Play in the sandbox?
Okay.
Oh, you... No, that's cruel. Well, I think he's gonna give them the opportunity to also, explain themselves. Nice. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Wow!
Synced up with the music. Alright, okay.
Whoa. Okay, that's the second time we've seen him do that kind of like scary face, basically, and then... Oh, wow!
Okay.
This is episode 2!
Yeah.
Okay, I am now way more excited about this show. Because if they have there be an exploration regarding... Oh! Huh? Wait. Was...
Oh boy.
Yeah.
This very much is giving me a Devilman Crybaby vibe.
Really?
Well, at least with a lot of the structure of it.
Huh. Okay. Huh. All right, so this anime moves quite quickly.
It does indeed. Like I didn't expect that because like since it's a 2-course show, I thought that like it would, and because it's like based off of something that's older, I thought it would be something where it's like, okay, they, you know, spend more time on things. But if they're moving this quickly, I wonder if it's going to be something where the setting and the stakes and all that stuff, like the reason they're moving quickly is because it's going to rapidly expand. By the time we're at the end of the show, it's going to be like unrecognizable from like, whoa.
Yeah, I think,
you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically
that. Because you said that, I think, actually in the first episode's discussion, was you said, I think that this is going to rapidly expand and go beyond the personal and become a much larger story. And I was like, nah. And now I think you're right. Like, just looking at this second episode here, the way they basically said, hey, in a lot of ways, just seeing the OP again also kind of reminded me of this as well. Basically confirming the relationship of these two in the OP and then having it start off so smoothly in the first episode, meaning like, hey, it's high school sweethearts, and this is going to move
setting
on
the
this way.
foundation kind of a thing for whatever conflict happens later.
Right.
Yeah.
And while I think that the show is something kind of simple right now in its narrative by hitting certain like comedy beats, action beats, and then kind of trying to tackle the question of survival and species that have like some kind of special might makes right reasonings for survival, which is that's rules of nature, and yet like human beings as a species have never had to really tackle another species of equal threat other than itself, basically. Like the only really enemies of humanity over the years has been other iterations of humanity, basically.
And while humanity has issues with humanity, like just internal struggles and whatnot, it's not something that is a systemic, inherent, ingrained issue where it's like, okay, humanity isn't trying to like eat humanity. Like, like there are times,
philosophical sense,
it
totally is.
On a philosophical sense, absolutely. But like on a literal sense, you know, that they
If you substitute eat for kill, it suddenly becomes extremely apparent how obvious the whole parallel works.
Yeah. So in that sense, for the parallel and the metaphor, it's fantastic. Right.
And we have a little bit of, I'd say, a disconnect with the whole topic of eating is worse than killing.
Well,
which is like, wait a minute.
Well, the thing is,
that's interesting.
Is that with eating, it's something that is necessary for survival, so it happens a lot more regularly. Whereas, like with killing, it's like it's basically contained to like when you have wars or murders or things like that, right? Which is generally at least attempted to be avoided, even if it's not done so successfully. Which could be, again, commentary on how often that seems to happen with humanity, when that's something that we should be avoiding, and we don't seem to say we avoid,
but we're not really,
right?
And then also the hypocrisy of then once another species is introduced into things. Well, wait, why is it wrong for them to eat? It's like, okay.
Well, the thing is...
Well, no, it's just, it's not that it's wrong. Nothing about it is wrong. It's just that, that other species will fight back.
Right,
they have their own right to exercise their desire to survive. And that's what's going to happen here.
To exterminate the thing that is going to eat them. Like...
As of the means of survival, yes, the desire to live on is stronger than any other desire. It's basically saying there is no right or wrong here. This is just the rules of nature.
Yep.
You introduce another paradigm into the dynamic of another species that is, for all intensive purposes,
very much at the top of the food chain.
Rapidly approaching the top of the food chain. The only reason why we don't know that they are at the top of the food chain right now is just because they're not on their home turf.
Right.
This whole environment has been subjugated essentially by humans to the extent that the only thing we're really worried about are natural disasters.
And other humans, yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in this case, the parasites are rapidly displaying that they are the new dominant species. Even if they have not, even if they're in unfamiliar territory and they are outnumbered, that doesn't really seem to be an issue. Because we've demonstrated several times in this episode when humans face up against these parasites, it doesn't go well for
when humans. When I say superior species, though, I'm not meaning on the individual level. I'm meaning on the overall level, which means humans are still the superior
which
species.
Species as a whole will win out over the other?
No, right now, I'm talking about like power levels. Like the humans are currently the superior species still at this moment. Like still,
or at the very least the dominant. Yeah.
That's what I mean. So they are the number one at the top of the food chain, but with the individual capabilities of one member of the parasites, that will not last long.
Right.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten into how these parasites replicate. Because
we actually just had that potentially teased.
Well, okay. There's the whole thing of like all the parasites, in the OP, falling down to Earth and whatnot. Okay.
I mean, you've seen sci-fi horror, right? You know how this goes.
Yep. Chest bursters and
and fluids exchanged and all kinds of shenanigans happens. Evolutions and crazy weird stuff.
Right.
So we're just at the beginning parts of this. And I think they're zeroing on these two characters because they're actually going to take them, or maybe not even these two characters, mostly on Shinichi and Migi.
Right.
Because those two are going to be the ones taken on a journey.
Yeah.
And I would say that if we looked at where they're potentially looking at for the story scope-wise, is that it's more about the philosophy, even though the scope of it is going to get bigger. I think the only thing that's still guaranteed to remain personal is the aspect of Migi and Shinichi's personal relationship.
Right.
And how the philosophy of, whether or not
they can coexist.
Or whether or not either species has any right to survival, basically. Like that's maybe a weirder question. I think. But
I think that therefore I am is pretty much the answer I think you'd get for that on both sides.
But the idea of coexisting accepts that both of them have the right to survive.
Well, let's drop right for a second, and they both have the desire to survive.
They both have the desire to survive, but I think that we know, based on how this plays out, that one species will destroy the other unless something changes.
Most likely. And Shinichi and Migi are basically the
picture.
The picture, the glimmer of hope of how that might be able to be avoided.
Right.
Because
of some happy accident.
Right, some happy accident. But the thing is that they are not coexisting right now. What they have is mutually assured destruction. Right? Because they don't want to be together, but it would be dangerous to their own survival, right, if they did something that, threatened the existence of the other, right? In the case of Shinichi, for instance, this was directly threatened by Migi this episode, where he's like, well, I have, ways of rendering you incapable of speech, or, making you unable to see or hear, or things like that, right?
Yeah.
That's previously, Migi had said, hey, if you get rid of me, then you won't have an arm, right? Mm-hmm. So far, from if Shinichi thought that Migi was going to do those things, losing an arm is far preferable, even if it is your right hand, Chan. And that joke was hilarious.
I can't believe they actually just went for it.
I wished they spent more time on it, because the thing is, I felt like it was...
I think Shinichi wished he spent more time on it as well.
or Migi,
Migi didn't get any pleasure out of it.
Well, but he was the one, instigating, and Shinichi was right there in the bathroom.
I think it's because he's curious.
Sure, yeah, and Shinichi maybe would have been up for it, just at a different time, different place.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah,
dude, it's literally got a mouth on it and everything.
No, I know, and I'm pretty sure it was turning into a penis when he was in the basketball supply area.
Wait. When
Maybe
he was in the basketball supply area,
and what's her name was leaving, Murano was leaving, and it started to turn into something, and then he's like, and hides it.
Oh.
A part of me wonders if it was turning into a penis. It looked phallic-ish, but that might
I think you're right. Because I think then that explains why she shifted hands. Because when she was holding his right hand, it might have made a little dick and touched her hand, and she's like, she goes over to grab
and that's
the other
thing.
Stuff.
Like the way Murano's been acting is not normal. Like, maybe this is just how her character is, but, the thing is, okay, the things she's been saying and the ways she's been acting and sort of responding to the strangeness with this sense of familiarity, it's weird. It's weird.
So you're saying that she's already one of them?
I wouldn't be surprised.
So why is she not giving off the sensory thing? I think
right,
you keep
exactly.
forgetting that.
No, I know, but that's the weird thing, is that because the whole thing of saying, are you Shinichi? That could be something where they're just having her say that because it's more of like a meta irony kind of a thing, But it doesn't make sense in my mind for her to say that. And then the thing with the hand, why is it if it did do something like making a little dick that poked her hand, it seems strange that she would just switch hands as opposed to being like, what was that? Your hand just it felt like your hand just grew something,
Possibly. It also might be something else where it's I don't think it's the dick thing. That's kind of a joke.
Right.
I think the more subtle thing is that she's intuitive. Everything that she's doing can be explained as intuitive. Here's an example of this, Jacob. This is a coming of age story. Right?
Yeah.
This whole thing is a metaphor for mature, not maturity.
Well, they puberty. Yeah,
puberty.
They literally did the right hand that changed, and now I can't control it, and it's jerking me off. Yeah,
it's literally a puberty metaphor storyline.
Sure.
She is asking, "Are you the same person that I remember that I didn't have any kind of connection or kind of attraction to in the slightest?" He's changing because he's going through puberty in the form of a parasite thing that has actually changed him on some level.
Okay.
But when you ask someone, are you this person? On some level, just the asking of, wait, are you really so and so?
Right.
Could basically change the whole thing. So I look at this as being a thing of where it's obviously, yes, the irony meta commentary thing of like, oh, does she know? No, she doesn't know. She doesn't know because like on some level, it's more of the thing where she senses something is off about him. And on some level, she's curious. She likes a little bit of the differences that he's showing here. So she wants to explore that. And as a young woman also going through puberty, she doesn't know what changes a boy to a man. Like she doesn't have any kind of experience with that. So it's basically the thing of, oh, this might be a part of the whole process, because there hasn't been so far anything literal that showed him as being not human or having some kind of parasite
right
thing.
Although there have been many opportunities for people to have seen something, but for the sake of, I guess, narrative convenience, we're assuming that the attempts at hiding it were successful.
Yeah. And that's, I would say, I chalk that all up to the fact that we are accepting this storyline where a parasite has made a fake arm for a boy. So I don't
yeah, exactly.
It's Spider-Man. It's the whole thing there. Every superhero ever that somehow conceals their fake identity while leaving silly string that's, actually spider webs everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course it's narrative convenience. But
even right down to the the random bully that comes out of nowhere and starts beating the crap out of him, and then he punches him and sends him flying, and then now he's scared of him. It's like, woo-hoo.
Right. And I like that that's done and handled in like 90 seconds. We don't have to deal with that anymore. Like,
because that would be kind of annoying. Like, that could actually be maybe part of the explanation of why the pacing feels a little bit off.
Oh, sure.
Is because this is adapted from something that's really old, right? So the tricks of the trade and the tropes and the things that you could do without much like explanation, right, that were just accepted back then, aren't as much now. So because of that, they're not changing what actually happens. They're just speeding through it because they're like, yeah, you've seen this before. There's the bullies and the bad guys, and they're throwing rocks at the kitten and, and things like that. And they're just sort of cartoonishly like mean and evil and whatever. And then, and then he, because of the changes of, this new superpower basically that he has, he's able to stand up to them and all that stuff and in front of the girl that he likes and whatnot.
Right. I brush over those a little bit quickly because we're still in the second episode of the show, and also that they're basically still introducing the dynamics between the characters. While they might not be introducing any more characters, they did tease the detective brother of Murano, though. That was very subtle, and that was not very subtle.
Right.
I picked up on that immediately.
Right. It's very clearly seeding something for later, probably when this gets more serious, and the high school fun times are over.
Right. But high school fun times need to happen now so that we understand what brought them into their relationship. So this was the episode of basically saying why Murano and Shinichi are together.
Sure.
They're together because Shinichi has a good friend in Tachikawa, and she helped set them up a little bit.
Yeah, she was
a good wing person, girl. Like she was awesome.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of bad for her because I don't know if she likes Shinichi, but she set them up so well that this is all now actually like a...
Yeah, like, let's face it.
Like, there's hand-holding, Jacob. Hand-holding.
Unprotected hand-holding.
Oh, my God.
Well, actually, no, not quite. She did change to the left hand.
That's true. That's true. She instinctively...
Yep, she's like, wait, hold on.
Maybe Migi got a little excited and kind of vibrated a little bit. It's like, so she switched hand or something like that. Or maybe she knows about guys and right hands, so she's just like, ew. No,
I'm not sure what this right hand has been doing. Yeah.
Right. She heard the story about what happened in the bathroom.
But seriously, Murano would not have gotten anywhere without Tachikawa. Like she was hopeless. Like,
I mean, yeah. If anything, you could say also Shinichi would have gotten nowhere without Migi.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, if we have this basically be their high school antics setup episode, and just chalk it up as that, while I think that it was a little bit interesting how they tried to also pull some philosophical stuff about the whole idea of, well, wait, is my species essentially, consuming your species some horrible thing? And it's like, well,
and they didn't really
we don't like it, so
they didn't have a conversation about it so much as Migi made comments about it,
right?
And Shinichi just sort of listened, I guess.
Yeah, I think Shinichi doesn't really have any thoughts of his own on this because he's never had to really think about it.
Right. It's never become a point of like that was forced into conflict, but it probably will in the future episodes.
Right. He had two things in this episode that were visual, compelling things to basically make questions about why humans do things to basically other species that they've subjugated. An example was made with the burger. And that was, like, not a thing I think you had to put even that emphasis on. It was very small. It was just done, and it was done.
Yeah.
And it's not like saying, everything but veganism is morally wrong.
Right.
It's
animal cruelty.
No, it's basically saying,
there was animal cruelty.
Well, it's basically saying, hey, this is what's going on. Just are you aware of it? And it's like
nature is not nice.
Nature is not nice. Yeah. Nature is not nice at all. And then we see not the cruel side of it. The burger is not really necessarily the cruel side of it. It could be, but it's more or less the gray area side of things. And then you go to the actual animal cruelty, where there are kids who haven't had their, they've had less time to develop their person, if you will. So they have less, I would say, it's kind of like that whole thing in Monster where, kids they have that little bit of them that's I see still untouched.
Yeah, I see it as being this thing where because they were very much focusing on the idea of nature and the food chain and whatnot, that this is basically the example of where the people that are on the top of the food chain right now, humans, what do the young humans do when they want to sort of assert their dominance and prove that they are at the top of the food chain, right? We had the whole thing with the guys that were, harassing the girl at the beginning.
Yep.
We had the kids with the cat, and this is my the explanation that only seems to really make sense unless they're wanting to say something about Shinichi as a character, but that could be it too. Is Shinichi's whole thing of like going all dark and being like, what was it he said exactly? Like, I'll
eat you.
I'll eat you. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that's more foreshadowing about how Migi might have lied.
And that Migi is having influence over him?
Slowly. Very slowly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and I kind of hope that's what it is because then that's basically, that would be adding conflict into the main dynamic of the show, which is Shinichi and Migi, and the way they handle that and everything, because Migi right now is very much out for their own gain, and they have stated as much to Shinichi, which, like, much to the detriment of the relationship, because now Shinichi is like, oh yeah, Migi I'm a hostage, right?
Yeah.
Migi is my captor. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's actually another example of where they did establish the whole top of the food chain thing.
Oh, yeah?
There was an ultimatum leveled when Migi basically said, if you do something that threatens my survival, I'll take away 3 of your 5 senses.
Yep.
Now, at that moment there, Migi was like, you seem to be experiencing extreme terror. Maybe you should rest. Basically saying, terror creates stress, and cortisol levels go out of whack, which is bad for your body, which is bad for me.
Yeah.
So could you go rest for a little bit?
Yeah.
Not saying
and forget about everything that I just told you.
Well, kind of just move on from it. I don't think he's ever going to forget that.
No.
But that's an example of asserting dominance, top of the food chain kind of stuff there.
Oh, they could even have a conversation between Shinichi and Migi where it's like, hey, I don't appreciate some of the words that you've been using, and it's not good for our relationship, and we'll get along best if we can trust each other, and and all that stuff. And really, it's just not healthy. You're pushing me away, like, oh boy.
Because one of the darker things I think that this show is going to eventually go into, and I don't know eventually what point this is going to go into, but there was the whole thing brought up about how he's like, I'm just going to cut off my arm. I'm going to cut off my hand. See, see this whole thing here.
That's probably the best bet right now.
Can Migi actually keep Shinichi healthy without becoming empathic towards him?
Right. Sort of like that, the what's it? Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome.
Well,
but like a reverse almost.
You're talking about reverse, yes, exactly, reverse.
Because it's both is the thing. They're a parasite, so it's a symbiotic relationship.
It's a symbiotic
even
relationship.
If Migi has Shinichi hostage.
Right. There is a theory, I think, going out there now based on the whole anger thing that was summoned up here, that it might still be a parasitic relationship. But according to what we've been told, it is only a symbiotic relationship. There is no parasitic aspect of it anymore because Migi is allegedly localized off to this arm here. We have to keep in mind that there's the possibility that Migi is not just localized to this arm here. But if it does end up being a thing where Migi ends up kind of pressuring Shinichi too much, Shinichi could self-destruct, just end up doing just generally negative things, which leads towards him having, mental health, thoughts of suicide, other kind of crazy stuff. And then Migi is left with an awkward decision of like, wait, I'm the cause of this. Do I abandon him and try my luck at survival out in the wild? Which, like what was offered to him here.
And Migi doesn't like that because they're unsure of the odds.
There's unsure variables there. But I know, based on, Migi, I'm speaking first person as it about Migi, but Migi should know that humans are capable of great health and longevity and all these wonderful things if treated right, if handled properly. In fact, that was another thing brought up in this episode, was that if both parasites inhabited one body, we could run this thing for 140 years. It's a pretty good gig, right? And Shinichi's like, even that is less of an incentive because of the actual undefined variable of what happens if it doesn't work.
The W you know versus the W you don't.
Right. So I think that we will eventually end up with a story of where Shinichi still ends up going towards self-destruction and Migi is begging him to stay alive.
And that could be quite the conversation.
Oh, it could be quite the compelling thing because Migi's like, please, I've come to appreciate our time together. And it goes beyond just survival now. I genuinely like you.
And then there's Shinichi, which, at that point it could be how do I know I can trust you?
Right, like
you're just trying to keep me alive.
You're just using me.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're just using me. Yep. Yeah.
And maybe on some level, that's when Migi ends the whole thing and terminates themselves. Or basically just strikes out on their own and tries to figure out survival independently. Or maybe reveals that that's been my goal all along, is to try and figure out a way to be independent. And my only thing is like a shot of 1 in 100. When I separate, will you take care of me, Shinichi? And Shinichi will be like, of course. Like, if you trust me like that, I'll absolutely take care of you.
And he takes it and throws it in the ocean.
Hey, that could be a dark way to end it. Now, the other thing is I think the whole macro story will be engaged upon as well. Primarily what interests me more is the personal story weaving throughout the macro story. But they're basically telling us in this episode that there will be both. And which means it'll be a less personal story than I originally thought.
Right. And because they did introduce the sexy couple that is definitely parasites at the end. So
what do you think about that, Jacob? Like, do you think that she's already been infected in some way?
I think so. Like, wasn't she in the OP?
Well, no. Okay, hold on. I don't know her character design, if she was in the OP or not, but she was the girl that was saved by the parasite guy, who's like, I can't fit 4 in my stomach at once. Those are the same two people. Yeah, those are the same 2 people. Yeah.
Okay.
99% sure.
The dude then.
Yeah, the dude and the girl are the same. You're saying that the girl could be different.
I think the girl's different, but the dude's the same person.
Okay, because the girl wasn't killed when he swung his blades around.
Well, except he said, I can't hold 4 in my stomach at once. There were only 3 dudes. The girl was one of those 4. And I'm one of those too, right? Like,
okay. So you might be right then. Then he did kill her potentially, and we just didn't see it then. It was creatively censored by having it happen off screen. Yeah. That's possible. So then,
also the rack were different sizes.
Okay.
So
I guess you noticed.
Hey,
right?
It could have just been that they drew it differently because she was naked, right? Possibly. That is a thing that happens in anime, but yeah.
So if she has a parasite, or if she doesn't,
she's got a pair of something.
What differences do you think are important to point out? One, that this is the possible way that they replicate, is that they both need to occupy a host and then use that host's reproductive facilities to basically...
That's a good question.
...do their own thing. Because that's probably what they are. They're probably a planet-hopping species.
Well, yeah, that's the really scary thing, is not the idea of how they replicate necessarily, because that could be scary too. but that they were all dropped here en masse. How was that coordinated?
Yeah,
we
still don't know that.
Was that just like basically, pollen drifting through space, basically, that just like a cloud of it just hit Earth, right? Or is it like
survived atmospheric entry?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Those little pod things. Or is it that like there's some, faraway spaceship that's like, all right, now,
or it's a human experiment. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or it's a human experiment.
We don't know.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The more and more I think about it being aliens and stuff, the more and more I like the idea that it was
not intentionally, just sort
not made maliciously,
right.
Just made based on the
it's
process
just part
of survival.
Its nature. Yeah, because that's
It sent out a
right.
A small deposit out there, and a bunch of them hit Earth.
Right.
Just random happenstance, and then the reason why they target an individual species and cannibalize itself is for the purposes of reproduction. Is that so that you wouldn't want to have them like, okay, I got a dog, okay, I got a cat, we can't do anything here.
Well, right. I mean, yeah. Clearly, it's like once they go into the host, right?
Right.
Then they do everything they can with that host, right?
Yep.
And some are lucky, some aren't, right?
Right.
And based on just natural selection, whichever host ends up being the best is the one that survives the most and things like that.
Right.
And then from there, however the reproductive stuff happens, whether it's within that species or whether it's something where they mature, combine, whatever, from some super thing or...
Yeah. Their species, if it had to basically evolve to the point where it could survive for any period of time, I think that it would need on some level, if its primary thing was parasitic kind of cannibalism and stuff like that, it wouldn't last that long. The species would die out really quickly.
Right, exactly.
They would need on some level a reproductive capacity, and I think if their parasitic thing is that they use the reproductive facilities of the species that they cannibalize, then they run that genetic trail out as long as it can.
Right.
Until basically they destabilize, they have problems there, and then they move on and build basically some kind of thing that they spit out and goes out to another place.
And a part of me is curious how much, like how closely we're supposed to look into this from like the science of like the reproduction and things like that, because when they eat the brain, right? They eat the brain, but then they basically have the whole head, right? And they can shape it and do all sorts of stuff. And I'm not talking about like matter conservation with the fact that it can like extend and do all that stuff. I'm not talking about that, but like the rest of the body is still human, right? And they're just running the rest of the body from the head.
I assume so, yeah.
Right. So if that's the case, then the reproductive systems are still human. It's not like they gain a reproductive system because they adopt the reproductive system of the host, unless they slowly end up taking it all over anyways, which could be ties into Migi and the whole thing of maybe influencing Shinichi's thoughts.
Well, possibly. But I think that the Migi thing tells us, though, that they do transform the entire body. Because the arm is no longer Shinichi's arm.
Right.
It's Migi. Which means on some level, if he was to get the brain, I think he would just get some higher functions, maybe. He would get some extra stuff. He would get more control over the body. Right,
but like the ones that eat the brain, you don't see the entire body transforming. Like when there was that one here, it very much was like from a specific, like it was from the head and all that stuff, and it almost looked like there might have been part of the arm, but like
that was because it cut off the arm. But that's a good point. That's a good point. They do exercise specific, tentacle powers from the head primarily, like, if they successfully that's a good point.
Which might be why he wanted Migi to then try and fuse on the arm, because then it's like, hey, I'm dealing with just one appendage right now, but if we can all let our powers combine and stuff, we can become a higher entity, right? We can run it for the human for 140 years and things like that.
Curious stuff. I don't know. I think that the show has a lot of potential in where it can go on the whole world building side of things.
Just the exploration of how this concept works.
Right. And that's more or less a thing because they actually haven't done as much yet.
Right.
So the show still needs, I think it's still in its introductory phase. It's kind of showing with specific kind of tropey things it's doing with the characters.
Sure.
But given that it's a 2-cour show,
they have time.
They have time. And in some ways, I kind of would expect up until about episode 5 that they're basically going through.
Sure.
That. Especially, thanks for reminding me that this is adapted from an older material.
Like that, I feel like that
explains a a of things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because there were just certain things where I was like, okay, like, you know, it's not a problem that they're choosing to do this, but it's, you know, it seems a little bit strange. And then it's like, oh no, that's right, old material adapted to this, so they're
highlighting things,
things that they specifically want to highlight. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The music in this episode
was really good.
But it was
very loud.
Like, it was mixed, like, kind of loud.
Right.
Now, I'm going to check with our editor to make sure that's not something wrong or something like that.
But, like, we checked, like...
But we checked, like, Crunchyroll for this episode, and it seems to be the same way. Right. So, I've never seen a show like this before.
Like, it could also just be that, like, the protagonist is very soft-spoken when he's not, you know, telling people he's going to eat them. So, maybe that was part of it, too. Like, that... You know, I don't know. But, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the music is great. Music's great.
Music's really good.
I mean, I would want to have that be a main attraction as well if I had this, you know, kind of soundtrack, you know, display it proudly.
Right. That's the second episode. If you guys want to see the next episode's reaction right now, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access where you can chat with us about these stories or about anime in general, or Jacob's book that he just finished writing.
Yes, Battle Lines. Boom, my sci-fi novel. It's wonderful. Yeah. Link in the description to Amazon where you can purchase it and support me with that. But I think you'll be surprised by it. It's a great book.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.